All right, and now we're going to talk about lesson number 4 and the expectations for this little guy. So lesson 4 again can be found on Google Classroom. All the materials and activities have been listed out here, but of course if you want to refer back to the lesson plan document that I mentioned earlier, going down to lesson number 4, okay, this is going to be the same thing, of course, as what's already posted on Classroom. But for this lesson, we want to be able to describe how physical traits can be passed down from parent to offspring, and we should be able to describe the differences between the 4 modes of inheritance. Okay, so we also want to be able to analyze the application of gene editing technology through a couple of articles and some reflection questions. So in the previous lessons, we talked about one mode of inheritance. That was where we introduced you to Punnett squares, and we're looking at what we call simple dominance. There are a couple other forms of dominance when it comes to genetic traits being present or hiding in an individual, and all of those are listed out here. So activity 1, you're going to complete and submit the modes of inheritance notes using the modes of inheritance presentation. Okay, so these notes, again, they're just like the ones that we usually take in class. You're going to either print those off and complete those, or you could type them up as you see them. But to follow along, you're probably going to want to have the modes of inheritance presentation. Right? So this presentation has been put on Google Classroom as well, if you need to refer back to it. So once you've gone through activity 1, and we've identified those 4 different modes of inheritance, you're going to complete and submit the modes of inheritance practice. So this is just another worksheet that you can either print off and complete it that way, or you can just complete it on Google Classroom as you see it. This will help us differentiate the different ways that our alleles can interact and how certain physical traits are passed down from parent to offspring. Okay, so we've done activity 1, activity 2, activity 3 and 4. We're actually going to start looking at gene editing technology. And this is, if I'm honest, this is, I think, the most important and relative, most important and like essential thing that I want you guys to understand about genetics, because this is where this technology is taking us in our day-to-day life. We're able to manipulate genes and proteins at a molecular level. And there's some pretty crazy stuff that we can do with that technology. So as a little bit of background information, we've put together an article on a gene editing technology called CRISPR. This stuff is wild. I encourage you to look up, right? Just YouTube CRISPR, and you'll find some pretty wild stories. But if you guys want to read through that and complete the CRISPR article questions and claim evidence and reasoning assignment, okay, this goes through some of the details that the article mentioned, and then we also want to know your opinion about CRISPR technology. So to do that, you're going to create a claim, evidence, and reasoning statement. Remember, all of these should be in complete sentences. And then there is a little graphic down here that reminds you what each segment really represents and what we're looking for your claim and for your evidence and for your reasoning. Okay? So that's the first article that we want you to look at. We have a second couple of articles that we'd like you to look at too, because editing genes is really important in medical research, but we can do something very similar with our food. So you've probably heard the term genetically modified organisms, or GMOs. There's a couple of ways that we can do that, but GMO's article background goes through some of those processes and some of the questions that it brings up. Long story short, there's some really good stuff we can do with it. There's also some stuff that you might want to think twice about, right? So I would recommend reading through that article, as well as the second article about breeding a grape. Okay, so this goes along with the same sorts of stuff. And when you're finished with that, you can complete the GMO's article questions and CER, just like the last one you did. So you're going to complete that and submit that on Google Classroom. So long story short, for lesson number 4, these are the 4 assignments that you want to post to Google Classroom.